What was the most shocking thing you heard the quiet kid say? In high school, there was this really quiet girl named Grace. She was a pleasant person, but wouldn't say anything more than hi or sorry unless you asked her something. Even then, she'd appear terrified. It was at prom, and I was in the parking lot of the venue we had prom at. I lost the contact, and had to run to my car to grab my glasses. In the parking lot, Grace was smiling and walking from her car. She looked at me, laughed, and said, "Ryan, her prom date just fingered the duck out of me." I still laugh about it to this day. 72 virgins is nowhere near enough virgins for eternity. That's like a week's worth of virgins. Playing rugby. Hooker fails completely at line out. Someone shouts jokingly, "Does anyone know any good hookers to replace Patrick?" Quietest guy on the team. Never hear him say anything. Maybe Patrick's mom can help proceed to fall on floor. So this one kid, who barely ever said 2 words, one day asks the teacher for the time. It was at some after-school thing and there was no clock. The teacher says the classic "time for you to get a watch," which for some reason was funny to everyone else. The quiet kid doesn't laugh. He looks the teacher dead in the eyes. And once everyone quieted down, he says, "So are you gonna tell me the fucking time? Or what?" We were in like 7th grade. One of my students hardly said a word all year until a couple weeks ago. I was trying to get a group of talkative ones under control and she had enough. She yells out, "Shut the fuck up. I am trying to work, you fucking assholes." Awkward silence followed because I didn't know how to handle the normally studious and quiet one losing it. In junior high in the mid-80s, the game Trivial Pursuit was all the rage. We played it in math class one day and this kid, Gary, who never said anything at all, totally spanked everyone else by answering every single sports-related trivia question. He got a lot of attention for it and I believe he walked a little taller after that day. I don't think I ever heard him say anything else, but I did see him sitting on the bleachers at a few sports events. At school, having just shown me the scope for a, supposedly his, sniper rifle. If the fire alarm ever goes off and you can't find me, don't use the doors as an exit. What if we killed everyone with cancer to stop it from spreading? There was one girl in my school who I've only ever heard speak once the entire time I knew her. It was during lunch, and 2 black kids got into a fight. I heard her say, under her breath, "Fucking niggers." We were chillin' at a bar in Prague and someone rolled up some hash oil and tobacco and passed it around. The quiet kid hit it and got even quieter. 20 minutes later some aggressive, growling black metal comes on and out of nowhere he yells, "Kill your parents." We duck and lost it. He was pretty happy with himself. The quiet kid from my grade stood up one day, grabbed a broom, stood on a chair and began trying to swat bees that got inside. One bee landed on the window where quiet kid proceeded to yell, "Die bee die," and then swatted and shattered the window. He screeched when it happened and then sat back down. Never heard him speak again. One day I cut in line at lunch in front of the quiet shy kid. He's all like, "Hey." I'm all like, "What are you gonna do about it?" He's all like, "I'm gonna rape your daughter." I'm all like, "I don't have a daughter." He's all like, "I can wait." I'm all like, surprised face. Quiet kid sneezes, boy behind her. "God bless you." Her. God isn't real. This douchebag kid who constantly ducked with people was in line with the quiet kid and the quiet kid's friend. The quiet kid is a bit overweight, so when he gets up to the lunch lady and gets his chicken nuggets, the douchebag says, "You don't want extra nuggets, big guy?" The quiet kid out of nowhere just starts ranting. "No, I am all set, but what are you up to this weekend? You wanna hang out, grab some food, maybe duck a bit? I like to be on top and you look like a bottom. What do you say, wanna duck tonight?" The entire line is dead silent. The douchebag starts getting all pissed off and acting like he's gonna start a fight, and the quiet kid says, "Okay fine, you can be top, baby." The douchebag kid leaves to the entire line laughing their asses off at his expense. No idea if the quiet kid was gay or he just knew that even jokingly suggesting the douche kid was a homosexual would upset him more than anything. But I do know he left the line with his delicious chicken nuggets and a huge smile on his face. We sat in the classroom in I think 5th grade. My friend had done a PowerPoint presentation about Eminem. He talked about that he lived in a trailer as a young boy. And the quiet, straight A student stands up and says just like you. And asks to use the toilet. No one understood anything of what just happened. We live in North Europe. It's practically no one that lives in a trailer here. My friend didn't. Kid. I've never heard you say anything loudly. You need to shout something out, quiet kid. What? Kid. Shout something, in the middle of a classroom. A full-blown high-pitched roar is heard, quiet kid. Christmas. It was a Muslim kid who didn't even celebrate Christmas. What a dude. In class he asked the woman teacher if he could go to the toilet. She sternly replied, "You've got 2 minutes. Richard, and Richard says, 2 minutes? It takes me that long to unravel it. Teacher goes red and everyone loses it. One thing I always say, as a quiet guy, is whenever people are talking about me within earshot they usually say something like, "That mix Master Bone. He just never talks." Then I say, "No. But I hear everything." They all just kind of laugh awkwardly and slither away. I think it's weird how my lack of conversation is such a huge conversation starter. I was the quiet kid in this scenario. I'm a skinny white kid and I was working at Jimmy John's with a bunch of outgoing and loud black kids. While we were closing, I was doing the dishes and everyone else was doing their jobs. When we would close, they would blare rap music through the restaurant speakers. They would always rap the words and be really loud during the songs. So during one of the songs, when it got quiet, I just yelled at the top of my lungs, "Woo! This is my shit." And then I just went back to doing the dishes. Everyone looked at me as if I had lobsters crawling out of my ears. Jeremy. This guy was so silent that we believed he was a mute. The school had just recently painted the bins in all kinds weird styles. As our group was walking somewhere at lunchtime, we passed a bin that was covered in handprints. He offhandedly goes, "That bin is handy," leaving us dumbfounded at his pun bomb. I was the quiet kid. There was this kid in high school who was trying to bully me at lunch. And for context, he was a 21-year-old junior. He kept getting left back every year. For reasons unknown. Him. "Why don't you get out of our country?" Me. "Why don't you get out of high school?" He couldn't think of any response. Turned red. And the kids around the table started dying with laughter. I won that day. I went to middle school and high school with this boy named Daniel. Never once heard him say a word. A friend of mine said he would whisper sometimes. The night of our senior party we heard some music coming over from the corner where the karaoke machine was set up. At first no one really noticed him because people had been singing on it all night and most people stopped paying attention. But this was different cause no one was singing and the music was playing. The DJ stopped the music and started the song again. Daniel was standing there looking frightened, but this time around when the song started he began to sing. Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing and just crowded around him. He wasn't a great singer by any means, but 99% of the people in the room hadn't ever heard him talk. When the song was over everyone started clapping and cheering and he walked away with a big smile on his face. So there is this one kid I know, who is very quiet. He almost never talks. But when he does people listen. He always looks very calm. But I heard a story about him once. He was on the baseball team in high school. And one game just about everything had gone wrong for him. He had been hard by several pitches. Had a hard time in the field. And basically just had a crappy game. His last at bat. He strikes out. He walks into the dugout. Then pulls off his helmet and chucks it as hard as he can. He picks up his bat and just starts going ham on everything in the dugout, splintering benches. smashing water coolers, denting metal support poles. Everything. Meanwhile, everyone else is just in shock, basically trying to stay out of the way, because he isn't paying attention to what he's hitting. Finally he calms down. But I sure don't want to ever make him mad. Quiet guy I work with never said much until he came up to me and asked what happens when an Eskimo comes. Before I get the chance to respond, he throws a handful of ice at me and walks away. At work people often say good enough for the woman I sleep with when something is done adequately but could be better. This one guy said good enough for the woman I rape and murder and totally took me off guard. I was the quiet kid in school. My dad decides that after spending 15 years of my life in the same area/school with the same friends, he was going to relocate our family an hour away. I started a new school 2 years before I would graduate, which sucked. It was a very small school, so everyone already knew each other and I didn't really fit in. I got picked on a lot by the kids at my new school, and already having a pretty bad anxiety disorder, I withdrew pretty far into my shell. I tried to stay as invisible as possible, but I still got picked on and bullied. Until one day about 6 months into the school year, I was standing at my teacher's desk getting held on a math assignment and I looked up to the entire class staring at me, whispering and laughing. And something in me just snapped. I slammed my book down onto the table, closed my eyes and just screamed at the whole class to leave me the duck alone, and then stormed out of the class. It was a really tough 2 more years. But I graduated, moved out of that town and am now doing better than all of them. So duck them. Weird goth girl told someone I'll ducking cut you open and then use your intestines as a jump rope. My dad is very quiet, to the point that it makes most people uncomfortable. Even me sometimes. One day, we're at the park and a woman walks past us and my dad quickly says, "What if I punched that woman in the face and said sorry, I thought you were my wife?" I wasn't there, but in my announcing techniques class, teaches you how to present yourself and speak for radio/television, we were filming how-to videos in the studio, and the professor was telling us past examples of good and bad projects. One in particular was done by a very shy, awkward kid who came to the studio with a friend in a metal box. He so casually proceeds to pull a bunch of knives out of the box and film his video on the best ways to use the knives in combat with very specific and effective ways to kill somebody using his friend as a dummy. He was very volatile with his movements, and his friend apparently didn't even bat an eye. The professor then explained that despite how uncomfortable it made him and the rest of the class, he had to give him an A because his presentation was actually put together pretty well. We were discussing the Kitty Genovese murder case and how nobody called the police or tried to help her. So our teacher asked us what could be some reasons. Quiet kid. Because she was out of the kitchen. I remember this girl in my class randomly yelled, "Spank the monkey," then proceeded to take a stuffed monkey out of her bag and started spanking it. There was a girl in my class reminiscing on her childhood, telling how she went back to an old amusement park she used to go to constantly. She was saying how she went back there a few months before telling the story and said she wanted to kill everyone there. And the look in her eyes said she wasn't kidding either.